Okay, so in this Google review, Yelp review, Facebook Live, customer service based world, we know that there are insufferable people, crazy people, crooks. And usually those people want their hair done. Hey everybody, it's Courtney with the Court Order. I am here today talking about legal protections for all of you beauticians. I don't know what people call, do they use the word beautician? Beauticians, hairstylists, makeup artists, and nail techs. Some of this information is coming to you via question and answer. So these are questions that I sometimes get, and I'd like to answer generally. Now, you all know this, that in every state, there are different contract laws, and also in every state, there's a different set of ethics and codes for your licensure. So these are very generalized answers. Please make sure you see an attorney when you're trying to protect yourself. But let's get some basics. Okay, what happens when a customer claims that they don't like their hairstyle? Do I have to give the money back? Can they sue me? Okay, so this has happened to me. No, I am not a hairstylist, but my first job was a receptionist at a salon, and I also was a shampoo girl, which was a lot of fun. So I, lathered the scalps. And maybe sometimes I would do a little combing through and detangling. Anyway, one time this lady, she came in, she got a cut. It was so cute. I did not cut it because I'm not a stylist. I'm not certified, licensed, deep that. But I was there. She paid at the reception area, left, and around 6 p.m., her husband called back. "What are you all doing up there? This is a mess. I hate it. You all call this services. Credit this back to my card right now." And I was all of 16 years old, lost as to what to do. Of course, we look to our store policy. We want to accommodate the client because we want them to come back. And he said, "No, I don't want to store credit. I'm going to sue you all." Hung up. And so if you're a veteran in the beauty business, you know that this is not something that's new, and you may have experienced this and handle it in your own way. If you are new and this has never happened to you, great. Let's talk prevention, okay? One way to prevent this is to have documentation that protects you. Contracts. Long gone are the days where someone says, "I want my hair done by you," or "I want my makeup done by you," or "I want my nails done by you." And all you need from them is their name and their phone number and the time that they want it. Also a picture maybe of what they want. No. Nowadays, people are asking for your firstborn son before you sit down in their beauty chair. And I can't say that I blame them. Some of the things that people are doing is providing people with information about the service, allowing them to book online through various applications, giving people their expected information and expected obligations of the client. So that means I want to understand what you want, but I also have some obligations for you. No kids, no other people. I want you to tell me what you want. I want you to make sure you block off the day. I want you to give me $200 in advance. It's non-refundable. Give me the deposit. And I want you to understand the terms and conditions of the services that I'm going to apply. Okay? So these are some of the things that people are saying in the contract. I can't say again that I disagree with them, but this is your choice and your decision. Contracts really do protect people ahead of time, ahead of the service, from experiencing this disgruntled client or customer and demanding their money back, or even a credit. Because let's be honest, even a store credit or a service credit can be an inconvenience for your account after you work so hard for the client. And so what does this mean, Courtney? Well, I'm going to go through some of the terms that generally would be good to have if you want to protect yourself. But before I do that, I want to make sure that you all understand two things. One, a practice that I'd like to advise is that you remind people of the contract and the terms that you set when you call them to confirm. I remember, again, in my days as a receptionist, shampoo girl, salon clerk, whatever you call her, whatever you call, little Courtney, what I would do is I would call 2 days before and say, "Hi, Miss Shirley. We're calling just to make sure that you're coming in noon for your permanent. Any questions, concerns? Great. Bye. See you then. Now, if I get my hair and nails done, I get a text a couple days before confirming the time, date, and the stylist. And also there's a link, and that link confirms the terms and conditions that I signed on to agree with. This is a reminder to your client that they signed something for terms and agreements, and it also provides them a chance to look over it. I also advise clients to make sure that when the client comes in, you say, hey, how you doing? Don't just ask your client about the kids or how they're doing or COVID-19 or the weather. Don't do that. Make sure you also ask them, hey, did you have a chance to look at the contract? Did you have a chance to look at the documentation I sent over? And you're okay with everything? Great, let's get started. Do something quickly. Provide some quick language to provide you some protection, but also some understanding between the two of you in a friendly way. Because let's be honest, no one wants to walk into a beauty shop and feel like they're exchanging in some big negotiation. Beauty time is for pampering, it's for enjoying, but just get that out the way so that you all can get to, did you see what happened to the Gorilla Glue girl, okay? Get that done. And so usually I say something like, so you're here for a relaxer, you saw the terms and conditions, you saw the documentation, you were able to sign it. Great, and you have any questions about that? No? All right, let's get started. Come on back, tell me how the kids are. That's a really good way to make sure that, one, they saw the terms and conditions the first time when they signed it. Two, they had a confirmation through whatever service or person that you had call them or contact them. And three, you've mentioned it right before the service. So you're protected on that end when it comes to correspondence. Now, again, I know people want to know what to include in a contract. I want to make sure that I make this qualifier. There is a difference between an inconvenience or someone not liking the service you provided and an injury, something that harms them or hurts them. A lot of the lawsuits that happened in this country in the last 2 to 3 years weren't necessarily inconveniences or dislikes with the services that were provided. They were more so injuries, and I'm talking big injuries like slip and fall. I'm talking injuries like thermal burns, chemical burns, allergic reactions, and also infections and soft tissue scrapes that happened to someone or a client. And these were the result of unsanitary tools, misused chemicals, failure to conduct the pre-treatment skin patch, and also insufficient or improper training. Now I know everyone here watching doesn't have that issue. They're here to learn, they have a legitimate business, and they follow the protocol and practices of their licenses. But what this means to you is that you have a duty of care as a beautician. What does that mean, Courtney? What that means is that every person who calls themselves a beauty expert and who has a certified license in their practice has a duty of care to the patrons and persons paying them. Also to the guests that they bring within their establishments. Now, I know some people are salon owners and other people are now working from home due to COVID-19. What that means is that you're responsible for the health and well-being of those people, even for things that might be a little bit unforeseeable, meaning foreseeability means that you owe them a duty of care, and that if you break or violate or come underneath that level of duty of care, you can be responsible for what happened, the damages financially of what happened to that person, okay? So examples of that, of course, are what I just said, unsanitary tools, having someone on your staff do something like a chemical peel and that person isn't experienced in their chemical peel process. Make sure that you know your strengths, the staff knows your strengths, you keep your place clean, and that you understand you're responsible for the well-being of anyone who comes in for a service, but also the guests who come onto your premises as a business. And so that brings us to our contract. Again, these are the things that you need to include, all of these. 1, parties. Duh, Courtney, of course I'm going to include myself or my business entity and the person who's receiving the contract, but it's not that simple. Again, if we're going back, we want to make sure that we have the parties' names, but also their addresses, because if it comes time to sue, you want to know who to serve. When it comes time to file a complaint in small claims court, maybe because something went wrong with the finances, you want to make sure you know where to go. And so some people have said, give me your address, and people are reluctant, but that's up to you. Give me your address, or give me just a copy front and back of your government issued ID. Again, some people are funny about sharing personal information, but find a way to make sure you get some type of information to contact them. We hear a lot of stories about how stylists will do hair, something will go wrong, and then that person or the client will block the stylist on Instagram after having scammed them. Well, if you have their address, if you have a government issued ID, no worries, that's fine. We don't have to communicate. I'll make sure that the sheriff serves you. So that's a protection for yourself. Identify the parties, not their nicknames, but by their full name in the documentation. And just say it's for formalities, no worries. As long as you pay, it won't matter, okay? The second thing is you want to explain the service and nature of the service. So if you say, oh, for hair services, well, that's not clear enough, right? What are you providing to the person? Is it a relaxer? Is it a deep oil treatment? You know, are you providing powder, dip gel or gel manicures? Are you providing, you know, a full face of makeup? What does that include? Concealer? Does that include foundation? Does that include, you know, any other luxuries that come with getting your makeup done? Make sure you're descriptive as possible and put the cost, okay? Because it's really, really important when it comes to creating a contract that's fight worthy within court. Also, you'll want to include your rules and client obligations. I mentioned them earlier. Again, you're responsible for the guests and the patrons. So do you allow children in your salon? Some people say no. Okay, so say you say no children, you put that in the contract, they sign it, you confirm it, they confirm it, they come in with their 3-year-old anyway, and they say, oh, I'm so sorry, I couldn't find a sitter, but I really need this done because tomorrow I have this huge wedding I'm going to. He has his iPad, he's a good kid, he's gonna sit down and be quiet. Well, what does that mean for you? What authorities do you have in that moment, right? In your contract is to say that it provides you as the beautician the opportunity to cancel, to recredit them or to give them a credit to come back and reschedule, or does it allow you to cancel and for them to pay a fee? What does that allow you to do, right? What are the legal obligations for the client, and what are, you know, your advances or your possibilities if they violate that? So finally, the last thing that you want to keep in mind are time accommodations, okay? Some people charge. I remember when I used to be late for an appointment and I roll my eyes, but I admire her advocacy. If I was 15 minutes late, my stylist would cancel the appointment, or she would charge me an additional 5% fee to the service I was getting. So it encouraged me to be on time, and the reality is that if I'm 15 minutes late, then that means she's 15 minutes late for her entire day. I had another stylist who just canceled the appointment. So make sure you lay out your client obligations, but also your time obligations. Does that mean that you should write in the contract you reserve the right to be a little late or a little behind? You know, are you the type of person who says make sure you clear your schedule for the entire day because the service might require a bit more attention? One more thing I want to go back and add to when you talk about the service and nature of the service is that sometimes, especially with hairstylists, somebody will come in for a relaxer and then all of a sudden as they're sitting down, they'll need a trim. Oh, great. Well, this means that it wasn't necessarily accounted for within the contract. This is where it's good to have an attorney who can walk you through how to basically plan ahead or plan for unthought of or unforeseen services that are needed in mid-moment, right? Because you want to have a template or some way to include that additional service so that they can easily sign that contract before you start trimming, before you start that new service. You want to make sure you're paid and that the evidence is in your favor if there's an issue. So again, nature of the cost, I understand that not all costs are accounted for within the beginning part of the contract. So I do understand that. Finally, the last thing that I think is really important, and it doesn't have to be in the contract, but it could be something that you include as documentation to your contract, which is the reasonable accommodations paper. Okay, so this is something that I think is important for people who are disabled, who need special accommodations, whether it be that they need a little help when it comes to having their hair washed, maybe they need something, or they have an allergy to a certain chemical, maybe they've had chemical reactions or breakouts when they've gone to other stylists. That's important. For example, I know a lot of stylists don't have a lot of time, they're on their feet all day, they don't have time to eat a whole meal, and so they might have peanut butter crackers. Well, if your client is allergic to peanut butter, that could be an issue. Or a client may not know that they have an allergy to a particular chemical, but they may have used a product or or a stylist has used a product before on their face and have broken out. It's important that you get that information so there aren't any surprises, because I know a lot of beauticians and stylists, they are basically married to certain products once they really, really like them. So getting that information will prevent a lot of issues, okay? Now, I know I've been talking for a long time, so I think I have time to answer one more question, but before I go on, I do want to add this. Make sure your staff, and you all know this because you all are great stylists, but just continue to make sure that your staff and you yourself are following the code of your license. Please, please, please. That'll save you a lot of time, a lot of money. Another thing that will save you a lot of money is liability insurance, okay? Look into it, especially if you are a salon owner, or you own your own salon, or if you yourself are operating outside of your home, and if it's ethical and legal to do so, liability insurance for your business in the area of your home is really, really important, because it can protect you when it comes to the injuries that I listed earlier. Know your strengths. Again, don't do a chemical peel. Even if you're trained in it and you don't know how to do it, but you don't know how to do it well, get a little bit more training or try to stay away from it, because it will save you a lot of money in the long run. All right, so I have 2 more questions. What happens if my client's card gets declined? Should I call the police? So yikes. Okay, so this is tricky, I'm not gonna lie, because I think in that moment, you know, the first thing is probably shock, you're angered. And I think I need a little bit more information, because if it's just a matter of one card getting declined, and of course you ask for another form of payment, again, client-centered approaches are really, really important in order to protect your business. But if a person is doesn't have any form of payment, can't call anyone to get some help in order to get everything done, and the service has been done, and you have to deposit, but you need the remainder of the money, you could file a police report, but I think the bigger issue here is that you really want the money. Aside from the criminal side of things, aside from reporting a theft, I think what you really want is the money for the services that you've offered here. And so the good news here is that if you follow the prevention guidelines that I set before, right? You have that contract laying out the parties, nature of the services, the cost, you have their government issued ID front and back, or you have an address to serve them. At that point, after having all of that information as well as the correspondence, which is really important, a record of correspondence that they understood and that they agreed to everything, then you can file a civil suit and a complaint within your local court. Another thing, and I guess I should have added that within the contract, is you want to identify where, if there is an issue or a dispute between the two of you, what is the venue, or where do you want to file the lawsuit? And it's usually within the state, city, and county where the dispute took place, or where the person was wrong. The person being wronged is you, and so that means it would happen within your county, city, and state court. So in the small claims court, well, it depends on what service and the cost you're offering, but that's important to outline. So again, I think what's most important to you in that moment is the money. How you handle that moment will have a lot to do with your business approach. And so I'm not really here to answer those questions as far as, you know, how you want to run your business, but as far as the legal side of things, you want the money. And so there could be documentation that you have that says, listen, the person doesn't have the money. They attest that at this moment they did not pay for the services. You could have them sign something like that and then go on to file a complaint in court. But that is a tricky situation. I'm very sorry that happened to you, and I'm sure that it was an embarrassing moment for your client. Hopefully it wasn't something where they were maliciously trying to be sneaky. Hopefully it was just a misunderstanding, and that you all can get that done. But that really sucks. Sorry. Okay, last question. Oh, I have a lot more questions, but I can only do one more because I've been talking too long. I'll do a part 2. The final question here that we'll do today. My client disputed the charge with her bank. She sent me the money via Cash App after I did her nails. Then she left and disputed the charge. What do I do? I have heard of this happening before, and it is wild to me. So apparently, there is this thing that people are doing, very scammy, It's not funny. I'm sorry. I'm laughing out of nervous shock. So a person will get their hair done, nails done, service-based done, something done. You know, kiki with the person, laugh, say how great it was, post it on social media, and then after maybe 10 minutes, they will block the stylist, call their bank and say, oh my gosh, I have been a victim of theft. Someone is using my card. I did not go to this nail salon. I did not spend $200 or $300 on this. I want to dispute it and I want my money back. And the bank, if it's a good bank, will take the money from your account as a stylist, freeze those funds, and launch an investigation into what happened here. Now, that is a lot. I will say at the onset, I am not an accountant, but what I can tell you is that from personal experience, you do not want to use these apps like Cash App or Venmo in a personal account for your business. I have not sponsored, this video is not sponsored, and I'm not here to defame any particular application, but you want to use secure business transactional applications for your business. So when I was a shampoo girl and a receptionist, I remember people would just have checks. And you know, you issue the checks, and then checks were kind of becoming like debit cards where you could run the check and the funds would immediately become available to the salon owner. Well, what I will say is that the best practice now is to use other applications like PayPal, which are a lot easier when it comes time for disputes and investigations. It's a lot cleaner. PayPal for business. You want to set up a business account. Again, I'm not an accountant. That type of information you do want to hire an accountant for your business, but you do want something that is secure. All I'm saying, Cash App is, if you can't get a customer service line for the application, don't use it, okay? If anyone and everyone, and it's known for scamming, don't use it. If you're using your personal account, don't use it. I remember people were doing post-dated checks at one point. I don't know that it's best practice. And some people prefer cash. Again, I am not an accountant, but what you want in all of these situations is evidence. Evidence is the most important thing, because the investigation will involve the bank coming to you and saying, okay, can you prove that these allegations are false? You know, because for the bank, their client is the person who's saying that you stole from them. So what you can say here is, listen, not only do I have this contract that they signed with the parties identified, her full name, her identification if they have it, the address that we have on file, also the nature of the services, the cost of the services, this accommodation form. I also have a record of correspondence. So I have the confirmation call or the confirmation text that was on this date. I also have, you know, that she came in, identified the scope of everything when she walked into the appointment and she checked in. I mean, at that point, submitting all of that with the contract is evidence enough for the bank to go to her and say, well, this is what they're saying. Can you help us understand how this might have happened, where someone would have gotten all this information? And the evidence at that point is in your favor. So again, long gone are the days where someone says, hey, I'd really like my hair done, press and curl, light on the, you know, the hairspray. Let's get this done. My name is Courtney. No, don't do that. Protect yourself. Again, the contract with all the terms that I laid out, correspondence that you can cite to. This is all the pre-work. But there's post-work that I want to highlight. Post-work means making sure that your filing is tight and well organized. Some people take these contracts, and once the service is done, about 2 weeks later, they can't tell you what they do with the information. You want to keep an Excel sheet, you want to keep a Google Doc, you want to keep something that's confidential, but that keeps an archive of all of the appointments and services you provided people over, excuse me, I'm getting text, sorry, over the last 5 years. So you want to be able to keep the contracts and records of correspondence. You want to keep all of the information of the people that you service and how you service them over 5 years, okay? And you want to create a system that shows that, because some people think, oh, you know, if a person leaves my office or they leave my particular business, then I'm good to go after a week. And then something happens maybe a year later. Look up the statute of limitations for contracts in your particular state. For most states, it's about 5 years or 3 years for small business issues or services. But you want to keep a tight archive and file of who you service, how you service them, how to contact them, and what their contract was over 5 years. So the pre-work is the contract and correspondence. Of course, during the time of their services, making sure you meet that duty of care, making sure that you keep a clean facility and follow all the protocols of your licensure. And then the final part is the post-work, making sure that you keep an archive, a tight archive of the services that you provided. I hope this has been helpful. I will say that I have a lot more questions about wigs, questions about wig services, questions about styling wigs, and also questions from people. Let me see here. This question says, questions from salon owners when there are disputes with employees. So I'm going to do a part 2 of this because there's a lot. But the beauty business is something that is always booming, something that will always be needed, and it's a huge industry. I just want to make sure that for a lot of our small business people, a lot of our small beauty gurus and business people, you all have the information and resources that you all need. If this has been helpful, comment, like, and subscribe. Keep your head up, and that's all. Bye.